Welcome to another episode of The Nines presented by AT&T. This week on the Cloud9 channel, I am joined by two players on the Academy roster, longtime veterans, Darshan and Shernfire. So welcome, gentlemen. This is the first time you've been on this show. Are you excited to talk about all of your exploits at LCS playoffs, or LCS Academy playoffs, and then also Proving Grounds? And then we'll talk about Worlds and Worlds meta, because I'm sure you guys have some interesting insights to how that's developing with the main roster, as well as just being on the ladder and experiencing the meta as it shifts day to day. So how are you guys doing?
Good. Excited to talk.
You really, I can
The
feel
same.
the energy of excitement coming out of you right now, Darshan. Let's start with you guys had an interesting split because you were playing with Zven part of the time, you were playing with King part of the time. You ended up, you didn't end up in first place in the regular season. You ended your split in the summer 7, 6, and 5, which put you into fourth place, and yet you almost won the entire tournament. So what was it like early when you guys were making these switches with the AD carry? And was that part of the reason you're a little destabilized at the beginning? Or what happened later on that you guys powered up heading into the playoffs?
You want to take that one, sure?
Well, shit. Well, yeah. Thinking about when you mentioned Sven, Monty, and King, Calvin, I feel like at least on the emotional side, it was a bit of a roller coaster because Sven actually brought a lot of good points to the team, and we felt like pretty uh bad before he came in, and then Um, he pointed out a lot of stuff that made us a lot better, I guess. And we were also a lot. I feel like as a team, our team culture changed a lot as well with solo queue. And
I
yeah,
mean, Sven is a no. He first off, he's very. I love him personally, but he's very direct, which I
yeah,
appreciate. Being a very direct person myself, he has a great work ethic. He's a grinder, obviously. A longtime veteran, just like the two of you guys are. Are these the factors that kind of changed within the team? Is because like he does grind the shit out of solo queue.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I can add something, I think Shern brought up a lot of good points. I think Sven helped us a lot for the better. I think he was very direct and not afraid to call you out, but
Yep.
a lot of people compare like European and NA, like, oh, in Europe they're more direct and NA they're not. I think it's more so in the fact that like he can call out a point without like the personal insults or attacks coming in. He's just, like you said, direct in a way that's actually effective, which is very important. And I think also on top of that, you have someone who moved from LCS down to Academy, and Sven was, instead of it kicking him back, Sven was motivated even more to like try harder in Academy. And I was very surprised, honestly, because I think that speaks a lot to his character, that moving down to Academy, he just took it completely in stride. So I have a lot of respect for him there. And yeah, working with him, I think motivated everyone on the team. It was great to work with him. And it's not to knock on King. I think that,
Sure.
when King goes from his opportunity in LCS and all of a sudden, I think unexpectedly to him, maybe like a little bit, he felt like, oh, maybe Sven's going to come back. But now he's back in Academy. That was demotivating for King or Calvin, right? So
Sure.
that's not going to put like us as in a team environment in the best place. But I think that eventually, like we found our footing, and I think that uh, I think a lot of people like grew from working with Sven, and a lot of people recognized what was different with him not being on the team. And I think people stepped up. Like I noticed Shern like definitely learned and grew a lot from. Like I remember at the beginning, he's like, "Yeah, I just can't give feedback like Sven can. Like I can do the direct part, but I can't say it without like being frustrated about it." And I'm like, "Well, you don't have to be perfect about it, right? You just have to like start somewhere. And if it's like a little more aggressive than it needs to be, then you can dial it back." And I think that Shern did a lot better. Like Shern worked on that a lot, and I think got a lot better at like pointing it out.
Yeah, knowing Sven myself, I think one of his strengths is like, like you're saying, it never comes across as an attack when he gives feedback because he's so not emotional about it, right? He's just like, these are my thoughts, and then he like wants to talk to you about it, right? And
Yep.
he wants to have that conversation, but it never feels hostile in any way whenever I've had conversations with him about that stuff. So I like him a lot as a person and a player. So it's cool to hear that you guys embraced him and he was so effective. And in spite of this kind of like up and down experience that you had, you did really end on a high. You almost won the entirety of the LCS summer split. You pushed Team Liquid Academy into Game 5. So even though you may have had like kind of a tough time with the transition in the middle, what changed to make you guys kind of power up at the end? Because ending in 4th place in the regular season and then being 1 game off of winning is a pretty good improvement over the course of the end of the season to playoffs.
What do you think, Sean?
Hmm. Well, I would say that I think as a team we were very good at like being, I guess, understanding of Calvin's situation where, I've actually been in the same position, where I was playing LCS for like the first 4 weeks and then
With Liquid?
yeah, with Team Liquid and then moved back down Academy. But his situation was a little different because he definitely, they kept telling him he has the starting position the whole time, right? And yeah,
Well, I
so
imagine it's also hard because just looking at their games, you wouldn't have said that. The fan perception is one thing, but from my point of view, he wasn't the issue with the main roster at the start of the season, right? Like he was playing perfectly fine. So I think that could be disheartening if you feel like you're playing a pretty good game and the problems are coming from other parts of the team, and then you're the one who gets swapped out again.
yeah, so yeah, we understood his situation and how he felt, and yeah, he ran it down a little at the start, but I think we were kind of all understanding of that, and um, I think we lost our first week to like or the first week he was back to like or we went 0 and 4 and or 1 and 3, something like that, and from there on out, I think we just started to uh, I guess build our chemistry as a team again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole summer split was just a big lesson in being more honest. And I think honesty is something that really starts with yourself. Like, if you're not able to very honestly look at your own flaws and what you need to improve on, and then also if you're not able to be very honest with your teammates and your coaching staff from there, then it's very hard to like really move forward. And so I feel like that is one thing that Sven showed me is like, hey, you can be more honest and more direct, not only with your teammates, but with yourself in a way that can get you more results. And I mean, it's not something he said directly, but I think it's something that I've really probably the biggest value that I want to improve on moving forward is just as a person in life, being more honest with myself and others, because I feel like not only is it just much more effective at being a successful League of Legends player, but whatever you want to do in life, there has to be that level of honesty or it's very easy to delude yourself in very subtle ways or just very clear ways. And so uh, I think that that is something that I will keep on working on for the rest of my life.
When are you going to start your YouTube series about the mentality of a pro player, where you describe all of these things to help people out who are up and coming? You
Sounds
think
like a
about I
great
know you think
idea.
about this a lot.
Yeah, I don't know, I might do something on that. I was honestly like, if I was thinking about like coaching opportunities and things like that, because I guess like my outlook for next year is like, if there isn't an LCS opportunity, I don't want to like keep playing in academy. I'd rather just hone my skills on my own instead of just um, playing in academy. Because for me, especially for someone who's been playing for so long, it's better to get an opportunity not directly being on a team in LCS. And so one of the things I thought about doing was some type of like coaching consulting thing where I'm not directly working with one team, but I'm actually working with different players and coaches on the mentality aspect. And I guess a more holistic approach, because I think there's so much there in terms of like how you can like approach every single day and approach every single practice better that just can't be covered from the coaching staff that you have. So, yeah.
Well, I think in your case too, you look at Golden Glue, who's been doing very well on 100 Thieves now, moving into that coaching role. And I think also with you, it's really wonderful to see like I know you're very thoughtful about all of these things, and having that pro player perspective and that experience is really important. And one of the things that people the debate a few years ago was always like, oh yeah, how are the Koreans so much better, right? And the thing about it, no, truthfully, one of the things that I always said is that there were a lot of StarCraft pros who were now like older, who had retired from playing, who were coming into different games, including League of Legends. And even if they didn't know League of Legends super well, they had the entire mentality and like how to operate a practice and a team environment. And they became the head coaches of these teams, kind of structuring these teams, advising, mentoring the younger players. And they have strategy coaches to kind of, actually do the gameplay prep. And it's really, really valuable, I think, that they had an older generation of pro players who is moving into these kind of roles, because that firsthand experience just can't be beat, right? Like you've been through everything over the last decade, right? And so you know what
Yeah.
works, you know what doesn't work, you know all the different kinds of personalities that exist, how to talk to these players, how to help them design their practice regimen and their daily routine. And I think it's just it's very cool that we're starting to see that generation of players go into the kind of coaching roles. And not only that, but you're doing it at least in the same game this time, so you actually have more insight from the strategic end as well, which is what some of these like StarCraft pros were kind of lacking when they came in. So it's even better in a lot of ways. So I think that's really awesome that you would be considering that. And I think it's very valuable that people like you continue to work in the scene for the good of and health of the industry and kind of training younger players, because you can help them. I mean, esports was a shit show when at the beginning when you were in there, as you are aware. I have to tell you. Good Game
Yeah, I don't know if we
University.
want to go back to those
Good
dark
Game
days.
University. I'm just saying, GGU probably was not the model of professionalism compared to now. Times have changed, so
Oh my
not
God.
throwing shade, but like there's a lot more infrastructure now, and like I think you can help a lot of pro players avoid some of the pitfalls that you may have may have experienced early on in your career.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate those kind words.
Tell me your favorite GGU fact. What is something that people should know about GGU that you've never said before? Is there like a funny story? I'm just curious.
Oh my God, yes. So I think I can tell the story now. It's been so long.
Exactly. We had to wait for a long time, but good, go.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of stories, but one that comes to mind is like there's this like hoodie story that like teared apart the team. Do you know those like Blitzcrank hoodies? I
Yes,
think
I
Ryan was giving
remember
them.
those from back in the day. So
Yes.
to describe, they like were yellow and they like looked like Blitzcrank. So they made you. So it was like you were like wearing a Blitzcrank skin, more or less. I recall these. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not gonna name the specific players still because I think they're still active in the scene. But like so one of my teammates had the Blitzcrank hoodie, and the other one really liked the Blitzcrank hoodie. And all of a sudden he's like, "Oh shit, I can't find my Blitzcrank hoodie. Where'd it go?" And then we found out later that he stole it for his girlfriend from my teammate. A hoodie, a freaking
That's
hoodie.
so stupid.
And that messed up the team because it's just like, dude, why are you stealing a hoodie for your girlfriend? One, you could like even ask for it or like anything. It's just a hoodie, but it's crazy.
So
Like,
what happens what happened when it was revealed that the theft had taken place?
I think we were just in disbelief. We were just like, I was pissed off because I was just like, man, like, how could you just literally steal something from your teammate? Like, I mean, I was like 16 or 17. I just couldn't believe that shit, honestly. I just couldn't believe it.
Thank you. That's great. I look forward to more of these old school esports stories coming out, because I feel like we're finally at a point where we can kind of talk about the early days of League of Legends more openly and share a lot of these stories that, you would not have been appropriate at the time, but now in retrospect are just kind of, far enough away that they're just hilarious.
Definitely. Definitely.
All right, let's get back to the academy stuff, because I want to talk about some clips with you guys from game 4 of your finals. This is a game that you won. It was an extremely exciting game, and so we've got our AT&T 5G, fast, reliable, secure. So these will loop, so you don't have to like catch it all the first time we go through, so we can just kind of talk over it. So this ended up being an extremely long game, right? And you were down 2 players at the start of this Baron, and Team Liquid ends up getting it. But what were your calls like, Darshan, coming into this? Because you end up actually cleaning up Team Liquid Academy here off of the Baron.
Yeah, so I remember that King is just screaming, TP, 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 TP. Oh wait, no, not this play. This is a later one.
Yeah, it's gonna go. So this is you guys later on in a team fight. So we can go over these. You can watch them first, and we'll get you to talk about what was going on in the game, because that Rise ult was absolutely insane. The timing on that, I felt really bad for you when I was watching this
I was
and
off.
seeing the but you did get the Drake in the end. So you did actually like secure that dragon. And hold on, at the end here, this is you guys actually securing the game. So you're going to end up picking up the Baron at 45 minutes into the game. And Darshan, you end up TPing into the base at the end in order to kill the Nexus and actually end the game in a situation that looked like it might be a little bit dire, because you're trying to disengage right now and kind of get sucked into this fight, but it's after your Mega Gnar goes away.
Yeah, Copy died at the beginning. All of a sudden, we picked 3 of them. Right here, King is just screaming at the top of the line, TP, 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 go backdoor. You think I'd be the one who's like setting up the backdoor shenanigans, but this one's actually, I give a lot of credit to King for this call. And yeah, I mean, here we just run down the base, and I could have played it better to kite them a little bit more, but I run them to the bottom side, and then King comes in and finishes the job.
Yeah, you have the super minions there, so with the Baron buff, enables you guys to actually finish it. Super nice. It was a really good call off of this, especially because it was looking a little bit dire there. So we are going to, I think we do look at, like, we're going to see the loop here as well, but this is the first play again. So this is when at 23 minutes they get that Baron after a couple of you die. So what were the calls going on right now as you were coming into this pit, realizing that they were still low but securing the Baron?
I think we just didn't want to let them get the Baron for free, so Copy and I were just like, okay, let's do our best to clean this up. I think in those moments you don't really say anything, you just kind of do your best to hope it works out, and by God, it worked out.
Only one person with the Baron at the end. And then we're going back to the Drake fight that happened, where they had the world's luckiest Rise ult timing, which is just insane. I just can't believe it. I'm shocked because it looks like to me, I've never seen that before, but it looks like to me that the animation is actually behind when the hitboxes leave, because it looked like to me that should have hit because they were still standing there while you were in your Gnar ult animation.
Yeah, I don't know, Monty.
It's such a fringe case. Have you ever experienced that before? Have you ever seen that?
No, I have not. You have any thoughts about these fights, Shern?
Nah, I just remember like when Coffee would call us like, nah, we have to fight this. If we just run away. I just remember being like, fuck these guys, we're fighting. If they come in here, in that area right there. So
God, the boys smurf this fight. Yeah, the thing about backdoors is like, it's one of those things where like everyone on your team is just like, I hate playing this way, but everyone else and the person who's backdooring loves playing that way. Like, I remember back on CLG when I would backdoor Nexuses all the time, like I was talking to Stixay and he's just like, man, like this game isn't even fun. I just like watch you backdoor and it feels like I don't even do anything as an AD carry. So like, I feel like that's the reason why you don't see a lot of backdoors, is like, it's just a very specific way of winning the game that doesn't feel good for most of your teammates. And usually there's just easier ways to win the game. So yeah.
I mean, I think it was absolutely the right call in the moment, though.
Yeah,
It
there was the best call.
So you guys end up like barely coming out with that game in the actual finals of this. And so you guys were down 0-2 to start out this series. So I want to talk about your mentality a little bit. You guys are veterans. You've been in this situation before, right? But you were going to have to complete a reverse sweep, and then you end with this like really fun backdoor, like very close, very epic game, good shot call at the end. So how did you guys bounce back first off after game 2 when you were already down 0-2 in the finals?
You have thoughts, Shern, or you want me to start?
I actually don't have any thoughts. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I always think about this thing, like, how do you approach like going from behind in a series? And I think it also really depends on like what kind of players you have, and like if you yourself can actually do anything to help them. I felt like in my case with the players I was playing with, they were all very self-sufficient with their mentality. So
Mm.
like even when we were down 0-2, it didn't it often just felt like neutral or calm. And it felt like, okay, it's just another game. We're just going into this. I like on other teams, I've played with other players who just their mentality 0-2 just out the window, like they're tilted out of their mind, and you have to say something because it's just not going to work. That was not the case with this team. So I think that was a benefit that I felt like I could just focus on being calm myself and playing my own game.
Yeah, that's probably why I had really little thought about it, is because it almost felt like, wow, we lost 2 games. Okay, let's figure out why. Okay, what's usually it's something to do with draft, right? Rarely it's like strategy, because draft is the only immediate thing you can change in a series. And then yeah, for our team, it doesn't feel like any one of us needs like this sort of like charge to like get in the right mindset, because it we already knew that we just need to figure out how to win. Basically, we're all ready to like try to finish the job. So um yeah, we just all have our own opinions, and then we try to figure out what was best for us.
Did you and Westeros make any adjustments to the draft after game 2?
We just said full scaling. That's all I remember. We just like, I think in Academy, one thing is, a thing that is unfortunate is, at least between us and Team Liquid, is that I don't feel like we were playing at a high enough level where like, uh, early game mattered. Um, but I guess that's how it was, right? And we're like, okay, nah, let's just whatever. Early game doesn't matter. Let's just play full scaling. But I really don't think that's the case at a higher level where you just play scaling lanes. So yeah,
So in that game 5, you guys unfortunately lost, but upon reflection, what are your takeaways? Are you satisfied with your performance overall in the summer split? Given like we were talking about earlier, how you guys did have some disruptions to your roster in terms of changing players and everything like that, because it seems like a quite a good result.
Definitely not happy or satisfied. I mean, of course, there's also proving grounds that happened more recently, but I
Sure,
think
we'll
that
talk about that.
it like being so close to winning but not making it is always going to have that bittersweet taste. I think we went to 5 games in 3 series in a row, and I think we lost that game 5. And I think like we also had the Tryndamere pick. We were doing so well in that game, by the way. But yes, like we had that thing, like Sharon said, where like scaling drafts win, but then game 5 we didn't have the scaling draft and we lost with it. So
Mhm.
there's always that feeling of like, well, what if we just picked champions that scaled better and we just won that game? But um, I can see that perspective. I think what the way I like to look at it is that um, even though the games were so close, I think the thing that you should always try and care more about is like the process that you're playing with. I feel like if you like want to be a truly great player, a truly great team, the games, sure, games can be that close, but I think it also shows the level of like the amount of mistakes we're making, how much better of a team we could be, and how much better of individuals we could
Mm.
be. And so I always like take those matches to say, hey, like this was like the final result that I got to. Am I happy with this? Am I happy with how I trained to get to this? And I think the answer is I'm definitely not satisfied or happy with that result, but I think I'm happy in the sense that it showed me, even playing for 10 years, like, and even playing in academy, there's still like so much I could be doing better. And I think that uh like having that sense of humility in like your approach to the game is uh what keeps it fresh. I think one last thing I'll add to this is like something that I really like is this idea, like the beginner's mind. Like, can you go into every game? Can you go into every like match as if it like with no idea, as if it's your first match? And I really love that concept of just being very fresh with your approach and your practice. And so I think that was a really big takeaway for me.
Well, it's a sense of mindfulness too, where if you have that mentality, you're constantly reevaluating things in the moment that you might be muscle memory or just assumptions that you've made previously. So it's kind of a mindfulness practice in and of itself.
Yeah, actually, one more thing I want to add to that is like I think that's something that Shern taught me a lot because I think I actually came into the beginning of this year, really like I was like a very plan oriented person where I'm like, yeah, we can do this like the first 3 levels, and then like I do this, and then like you can always come here this time. And Shern's just like, yeah, man, like that's cool. Like I'll do that when it gets to that. And like I really didn't like that at the beginning because I was like, well, like it's just a free kill every time, or like, oh, it's just a good situation every time. And I think I really learned like uh, not only being adaptable, but kind of like it's good to have a plan. I think Shern also saw the value of a plan because I just kept like bringing it up. But I think I learned more the value of just being very adaptable and also like not needing the plan to be successful because there's almost like that if you plan so much, then when the plan goes to ruin, what are you playing for? And
Mm,
also the moment that's happening in front of you right now isn't a plan. It's just the game that's playing out. So if you're so rigid in like how you view the game, then you're not very, I guess, like I said, fresh, but also you're not able to really play the game to its limits. You're not really able to abuse the opponent that's right in front of you. And so I think that's something that I think that's one of Shern's best qualities is like he is able to see those moments in the moment and just go for them. Whereas I think that's something that was lacking in my play in certain aspects.
do you think that saying you're more reactive to the situation and trying to, make calls based around the scenario that's playing out in game is accurate to your style, Shermfire?
Well, it's weird because I'm a jungler, right? It's junglers usually playing a lot. I think I I think I do both, I guess. Like Darshan, the thing with me and Darshan is like we had a lot of conflicting opinions throughout the year. And I think like Darshan said, he learned from me, but I also learned from him about caring more about planning. Whereas at the start, I didn't really like. I had obviously my opening path. There's certain things I wanted to do, but I didn't tell my team, "Hey, I'm gonna do this, this, and this." And I think there's times for that, and there's times for like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this, and this is the overall idea, like, of what we're trying to accomplish." Like usually, um, I guess it's hard for my ego, but usually it would take like another team to do something that Darshan was talking about for me to like okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, like top dives, for example, has been a big thing this split.
Mhm.
Team Liquid has been like started doing it, then everyone started like putting the support top right. I feel like they reinvented the game that way, and then I feel like I guess that's what Darshan always wanted, but I don't think he was able to like just tell the support to come top because he just doesn't know what the support wants, like the resources um he can have to come top. So yeah, I guess that was something that made me realize I need to be more open-minded to new ideas.
Well, I think we can actually use this conversation to talk about some stats from our Stat Hub powered by Microsoft. And the reason why I bring this up is because you guys have some really interesting like we can talk about your synergy and the development of it because I picked some stats here that I think show some interesting information. So these are all of the summer split academy games that happen. Darshan,
Whoa, -6 at 10? Jenkins, what is going on with you in lane, my dude?
yeah, pretty big difference over the course of the entire season. Obviously, Jenkins had fewer games because he was up playing when Alfari suffered his mysterious benching. Um, but what I want to talk about you, Darshan, is that you're up at 40% first blood kill assist ratio, which for a top laner is very, very high. Um, and as we can look at Shernfires here as well, because I think that also tells part of the story if we want to move on to the next one. Because you're at
Jungle diff.
60%. Yeah, that's 20% higher on Armeo, right? And even though he has higher kill participation, saying that probably you guys do a little bit more skirmishing as opposed to team fighting, like Team Liquid Academy is how I would read into that. But you guys are both like very high on the first blood. So how is your strategy? Like, how has your synergy been going? Because it seems like Darshan, you have you want to call him up there when you know exactly what's going on, when you're sure you're going to get a kill. And I think the stats kind of bear that out, where you were very effective in the early game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Microsoft Stat Hub is onto something. Shernfire just sees those free kills top and he just gets them. I don't know what to say.
Uh,
But is this something like you guys worked on in terms of your synergy? Were you kind of focused on having that help or getting those kills, or your synergy as a duo in the early game?
I
I
mean,
mean,
go ahead, Shern.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think the synergy was forced because half the split I didn't want to go top, and then obviously Darshan wants me to go top, so we had to come to some sort of like um agreement,
Middle ground,
meeting,
yeah.
yeah, middle ground, and yeah, so we did dive top a lot this split, and I think it was actually, I'd say, if you're talking about stats, I'd say like 75% of the time it was actually good, and the 25% of the time it lost us games, but a lot of the time it did help us snowball the game.
Yeah, it's just unusual to have that hot 40% up in top lane, considering it's difficult for the jungler to get there on kind of an island, is, I would say, pretty unusual, especially in the meta that was happening for most of the summer. So I looked at this and I said, "Oh wow, it's a lot of focus on the top side of the map and some good synergy." So I'm surprised to hear you guys say it was kind of difficult to get there, because the numbers are telling me it was working pretty well.
I think usually top lane is just the easiest lane to kill, like on stage too, and just in games. Like, I don't know what it is with top laners, but they just love dying to junglers. It's crazy.
That's what the top laner says, by the way.
Well, good stuff. Well, thanks to Microsoft for providing that for us. Interesting comparison given the tone of the conversation. We are going to do in chat right now. If you guys use the hashtag Puma and you're over 18 and you live in North America, you can win a gift certificate. So go ahead and do that. We'll get that out of the way now because we will have some Q&A with you guys later on. So I'll call for questions that chat might have. But let's talk about Proving Grounds a little bit, because I want to chat about that. And then let's talk about your thoughts on the upcoming world meta. So Proving Grounds, I'm curious, how much does this matter to you guys as players? Because especially as veteran players, it would seem to me that most of your focus would have been on the summer split and playoffs. And like, do you care about Proving Grounds at all, or what was your prep like going into it?
You want to go, Shern?
Yeah, sure. Um, yeah, Proving Grounds at the start, the first split, it was like, what is this new format? It's like really weird, versing amateur teams. And I guess in a way, it just didn't seem that useful and it was weird because we ended the first split. We took like a 2 week break, then we had to play and then another break and then summer split. So the scheduling was very weird. But then by the time, I guess because we came second place in our first spring grounds. I guess I'm sure that triggered the whole team. It definitely it definitely triggered me. So I guess it mattered to a lot for us to try to win that in the second split.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few things here. I think, well, one, I think Proving Grounds is the most like is the tournament right before the season ends, and where teams are looking at like who who do we want to pick up and who's looking good. So I think there's always that element of Proving Grounds. And also for me personally, I think on one level it mattered a lot, and then another level it didn't really matter. I think on the level that it mattered a lot was that every competition is important. Also the previous point, but also I think if you're in these tournaments to compete, you want to be able to like improve and do your best, and you want to be able to make it to the end because you have the most to showcase with your team, you have the most chance to improve, and you have the most to get out of the tournament. And so the fact that we fell out like halfway through the tournament really sucked.
Mm.
But also my reflections on losing the tournament was that um, on any given day, you can just have the worst draft, and that can make it so much harder to win. Or you can just have one thing that terribly goes wrong. And so I guess it was really something I reflected on in this match was just that you really can't prepare for like what the reason is going to be that you win or lose the match in terms of like going through the whole game. Like one teammate making one miss position or one teammate doing one thing that they shouldn't do at a certain time can literally lose you a game. And so that's just crazy to me that like you can spend your whole year working on all these things and then you play the match and then the reasons you lose, like you can go back and look like, oh, like yeah, we could have trained this in some way. But I think getting very specific, the like individual reasons why we lost or won a game, there's so many intangibles. Like for example, like the draft, I think that we had a worse draft both games. How do we go about having a better draft? There isn't really like an A to B that just fixes the draft. There's so many nuance into like interactions between teammates, why we think certain champions are good, how we're going to approach the plan for that game, how we actually adapt from game one to game two. Um, I could like literally talk about this for an hour for like our specific match, so I don't want to go too much into that. But
You're talking about the match versus Golden Guardians Academy, to be clear.
yes, the match
Okay.
versus Golden Guardians Academy. I could go into like the ideas there, but I don't think it's too helpful. I think my takeaway was just that like, wow, like you really can't be too specific because you can't get the specifics down. You just have to be very, again, going back to having the beginner's mind and also just in general how you take every single day. I think there was a lot to be desired in how I approach my practice and how we approach our practice. So I'm just I think it's just a reminder to always look back at that because the day of the match is just you can't really control or predict exactly what's going to happen, and that's the beauty of it, right?
It's kind of a bummer too, because you guys had to knock out the C9 amateur roster. Do you guys practice with them ever, or like what's your relationship with that team?
Very rarely, honestly. I think it's something that I guess it's the same thing between LCS and Academy, right? I think what Cloud9 prided itself in before was like, hey, we build this relationship between LCS and Academy, and that was what made me interested in joining the Academy squad in the first place. Was like, oh wow, we're gonna scrim the LCS team so much, it's gonna be great. But then this year was the year that they actually didn't do that. They actually pulled back on a lot of those things, and so
Hmm.
I think that going into next year, I think it's something that Cloud9 should look to do more because I think it's what kept them ahead of a lot of their like peers in the LCS was that they integrated the systems.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually surprised to hear that, given what was going on last year. You guys weren't doing like warm up scrims on game days with the LCS team.
Very rarely.
Hmm.
I don't think we did it with the LCS team a single time this year, like warm ups. But it was something that was every single match, like last year.
Right. That's why I was surprised.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to hear that now. Interesting. I wonder what the reasoning behind that is. Um, so when it comes to proving grounds, obviously sounds like you guys are disappointed in the results, especially since Team Liquid, Academy again kind of made it to the finals. They lost this time to 100 Thieves. Um, uh, if you what are the things that you're looking for next year potentially? I mean, you might not be a player, Darshan, if it sounds like you might be thinking about moving into that coaching role, but what are your kind of takeaways as looking back on this year of academy, and what are you guys going to be doing during the off season?
You want to start, Sean?
Oh yeah, sure. Um, well, just thinking about that proving grounds, like I guess in terms of gameplay for me, the takeaways is I really appreciate how 100 Thieves played like this proving grounds. I feel like they beat the team that just tries to turtle and play safe and play for objectives, right? Which I feel like was Team Liquid, and I feel like it was us to an extent as well. And I really still think that's not the best way to play the game at the highest level. So I think for me, it's just being more open-minded to figuring out how to snowball the game because I feel like I do have this autopilot where I just want to like do nothing and just play for every dragon, play for every baron. Um, and yeah, just figure out how to be as aggressive as possible, I guess, in the game and make shit happen. Um, So yeah, but right now, I guess for me, um, there's just a lot of unused energy to me because it just feels like we got knocked out way too early, at least for for me, because I feel like we were a lot better than we showed on that day. And right now, I'm just grinding solo queue and trying to hit rank one just for myself, because this year is a year where I stopped valuing solo queue for like the first time in my career, and I started to like be one of those people that just was like, yeah, NA solo queue sucks, it's useless. Um, but yeah, I think I was just telling myself lies. So yeah, I'm just kind of just being more honest with myself, because I guess throughout the split you tell yourself, or throughout a competitive season where it's like everything goes so fast, you can tell yourself things that just aren't true.
Well, I can see you're still in the academy practice room at the Cloud9 house. So, are you planning on going back to Australia at any point?
No, I think it would be way too hard. But I wish I could go to Korea, but I think Australians still can't go to Korea.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Australia's on full lockdown, so I don't think Koreans allowed to go to Australia. So I think that's why.
Jeez, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Yeah, I know it would be difficult to get out of Australia if you went back right now. So probably not your best plan in case you accidentally get trapped there. I know
Yeah.
it's been rough. It's been rough for Australians.
Yeah, I don't think Fudge has been back since COVID. So he's been here the whole time, so I'm
I
probably
think
gonna
after
follow the
King
same
got
path.
trapped there, he got spooked. So
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. Yeah.
So what are your off-season plans, Darshan? Anything?
Yeah, so I think quickly touching back on the reflections you said, I think I
Mhm.
said a lot of those already, but
Yeah.
one thing I want to add is just I think it all does come back to like the sense of like flow in your like not only in your practice but in your performance on stage. A lot of people like to use it as a buzzword, but I think very tangibly what that means to me is like you're just so focused on what you're doing that nothing else comes in. So like that is like the number one thing I want to do is just be able to play league with that not only that like single pointed focus, but also just that enjoyment, right? I think so often, especially if you've been playing a game for so long, you make a mistake and you're like, "Oh, I should have seen that coming," or "Oh, I'm making the same mistake again." It's so easy for like thoughts in the mind to like creep back in, but if you're just able to keep that, like I said, beginner's mind, or keep that same focus of just enjoying what you're doing and just having no expectations, I think that is what I love so much about the game. That is what I love so much about it competing, and that's what makes it so fun. And so my plans for the off season, I think no matter what, some part of me still wants to compete. Still feels like I have more to show. Um, that doesn't mean that I won't be open to coaching or doing some type of coaching or something. But honestly, I'm keeping it very open ended on what I end up doing. I think off season is just like I mentioned to you before the call started. I think I've been playing League for like almost a decade, and it almost feels like every single day needs to be productive or moving towards the goal. Otherwise, it's not satisfactory. That's what I kind of reflected on was that like there's this sense of I need to do something productive today. And for the first time, or not for the first time, recently something I've been working on is just letting go of that need for every single day to be productive, for every single day to be moving forward, like whatever forward means. And so I think that's been very beautiful because I think if you can just live a day in your life where you did nothing and that was totally fine, I think you stumbled onto the fact of just enjoying life, right? It's not very complicated, it's not very crazy, but I feel like so often we want to feel the need to constantly be going forward. But it's okay to just be.
Well, that can lead to burnout too, because,
Yeah.
if you have a preconceived notion of productivity, like it might not actually be helping you, right? You feel like you have to go do this thing, and once you've completed this task that takes X amount of time, who knows if that was actually helpful to your game or not, right? Whereas like if you take some, have a little bit of distance, you can come back and with refreshed mindset and actually, you know, help change any kind of behaviors or play style issues that you might have, because you're more actively engaged in it after the break, right?
I could not agree with you more, Monty. And I was not wise enough to figure that out. It took me a long time. I think I was there. I was burnt out in points in my career, but I didn't know what burnout was. And so I think you said like, oh, there's so much education that can be done in esports, and I mean, yeah, I just cannot. I cannot agree more.
All right. Well, it looked like I mean, I know this Twitch user because they're on a lot. I see them on a lot of the shows, but it looks like Kiana's Thighs has won the Puma giveaway, which is a fabulous name,
Nice.
and conveniently puts us into a bridge for the world's conversation because we haven't seen a lot of Kiana's Thighs in League of Legends recently, but we're about to see a lot more Kiana Thighs. One would assume she seems to be a pretty popular flex pick between mid and jungle in the new meta. I know you guys have probably been talking to the Cloud9 and other players that are currently boot camping in Iceland for Worlds. So give me some juicy tidbits about the Worlds meta. And if you guys had to predict, Shernfire, you say you're playing a lot of solo queue recently. So jungle's changed quite a bit. Now it's
Yeah.
the mass score drinker, Zed, Talon, Kiana, Kha'Zix, Jarvan. Now, Lee Sin and Xin Zhao are still quite strong, so we should be seeing
Yeah.
them quite a bit. But a lot of what's been practiced, like I look at Blabber's account, he's even playing a little bit of Talia. Lilia might be back in. How are you feeling about the jungle pool right now, and what do you think is strong in this meta?
I think all the new champs are like still niche because by nature Lee Sin should counter all these champs, right? Invis champs or champs that like if like for example, if said literally ults a Lee Sin, he just kicks him instantly and he's flying across the whole enemy team, right? Um, but I think for my prediction, I think all these new picks will come out early, and then we'll actually start to see in group stage and playoffs um, what will actually like be like good and what people will play. But I think at the start people will like be more open to playing like the Kiana, Talon, and Zed. But I do think Talia is actually a legit pick, but I'm from my experience in soccer currently and just watching the main team scrims, it's I think I'm a bit skeptical of those picks so far. I think they're a bit niche right now, but we'll see.
What caused Talia to come back into favor? Because she was, really big earlier this year. Then they nerfed her clear speed a little bit. So why now is she coming back into style?
Well, I think she's a flex pick. Just
Sure.
keep in mind mid end support, and that wasn't a thing before.
Yeah,
And
because they changed
yeah,
the radius of her worked earth, so it's a lot easier to lane with her now.
yeah, and also doing objectives with that is just like OP because you can pretty much at the start, Dragon and Barons or the pre pre buff, you could have like 4 queues and then you would have to actually just fight on worked ground and you could only use your little
Mm.
tiny PP. But now you can just like spin around. You can just go around the whole Baron pit and do a lot of damage. And usually in team fights it will always be up. So I think it's just the the meta and uh, itemization tools and other things on this is very cheap these days. And
A global
uh,
ult's always good, turns out, in pro play.
oh yes, yes, that too. Skirmishing is very good. I think she sucks 1v1, but skirmishing is very good with some setup. Like no one can tank a WE from Talia. So
Yeah, if you have the stun to set it up, it can be brutal.
yeah, not I don't think any jungler can tank that. So yeah.
All right, so are there any surprises that you've seen in the top lane, Darshan? Because it seems like Tryndamere is obviously, like, you played it, you mentioned earlier, but it is kind of a flex mid top pick these days. Even though I think from what I've been looking at in terms of what players have been playing in solo queue, it has been a little bit more mid focused. But it doesn't seem like the top lane pool has changed a whole lot. Is there anything surprising that you've noticed?
No, not really. I think it's a lot of the same picks. I think Tryndamere is probably going to be the biggest one, but I don't think you'll see very much innovation. I think Gangplank is probably going to be another big pick. He got a pretty big buff.
All right, let's do some questions from chat. If you guys have them, I'll give a minute for those to populate. So what have you been hearing? Give me your scrim bucks. Who has the most scrim bucks right now from what people are talking about over in Iceland, or what you've been hearing from your pro player colleagues? Because I know you got the rumors, man. I know you got the rumors.
I got nothing, and from what I've seen, I don't know what I can share. So I'm rooting for Cloud9. That's all I got.
Is it reasonable and rational to root for Cloud9 based on what you know?
I think so.
Good.
I mean,
good.
what I will say is scrim results usually don't have
Yeah.
the best indication of how you're going to do on stage. So
Yeah. Especially in a meta where no one's actually seen a professional game and nobody really knows what's good given these changes. Like, so many of these, like, I would be very cautious if you guys are hearing rumors about, not you, I mean the viewers. I know you guys know to be cautious, but the viewers, it's like scrim results in games like these, especially before meta shifts, before Worlds, when no region is played professionally, is like it gets really weird because so many scrims can be just one team experimenting with a pick and then losing all their games, and the team that wins getting overconfident, or like, the team that loses like, well, I guess that didn't work, and not caring about it and just moving on to the next thing. And also, it's just hard to know what like draft priority is, because you might be underrating a pick very much or overrating a pick very much, or you might have just landed on the perfect pick and you have the right kind of gauge of its strength. And if the other team, especially in a best of one, like these are single round robin best of one in play-ins where Cloud9 is going, you fuck that up one time and you can have some real problems. So I think these results are going to be weird for play-ins. For those of you who are familiar with play-ins, Cloud9 is in objectively the easier group. Like, they dodged Hanwha and LNG, so that's nice for them. And also, only the last place team doesn't get a chance to qualify. First place team automatically qualifies for Worlds groups, the main event, and then the other three teams are able to at least fight through a best of 5 bracket. So it's very unlikely that Cloud9 would get eliminated right off the bat unless they are categorically the worst team in their group. So they will be playing most likely a best of 5 at some point in time.
yeah, I think they got a good shot of making it out. Genuinely.
Yeah. And as long as they get second place, they don't have to play Hanwha or LNG, whoever doesn't get first place in that group. So they would end up playing, the third or fourth team from Group A. So all is not lost, even if they don't get first place in this group. And the thing about the other group is, like, well, it's not as top heavy. The other teams in this group are kind of surprisingly competitive in many ways. So I think it's going to be really difficult to call who's getting out in first in this one.
Yeah.
Are there okay, here's a good one for you guys. Do you think there's a team that's been very underrated that's coming into Worlds this year? Like a dark horse of the competition?
Well, all the LPL teams are properly rated, right? Because I would say even the 4th seed LPL team is pretty damn good. That's what I would say. Like,
Yes.
I don't know how people rate, like, for example, 4th seed LPL, but I would say like just as good as like the top seeds in other regions.
I mean, LNG could win Worlds. I mean, if you just look at their results, the only teams they lost to in LPL playoffs were EDG and FPX, right? And they beat RNG in LPL playoffs already. And they're the reigning MSI champion. They took out Top, which is Knight's team, right? They took out Suning at the start, which was mostly the same roster that was in the finals of Worlds last year. So I think they're legit. Very
Okay,
legit.
they're properly rated.
Yeah.
I don't know what else
I
I'd say
think
then.
so.
I'm just really impressed by the LPL players, honestly.
Yeah. And Tarzan's been been a lot of fun to watch. Do you like Tarzan Shernfire?
Well, what's so funny, Darshan? Please let me know.
It's because Tarzan loves to camp in brushes, and I just like showed Shern VODs of like, wow, look, Tarzan's sitting in this brush for a minute. And it's like, yeah, these junglers don't know how to full clear. They don't know how to jungle.
Nah, well, yes, yeah, I do remember those moments, but on Tarzan, I think that I don't even know what to say about like his performances because it's like he's been performing really well, but um, I feel like I don't think we should expect him to be like some crazy star carrying worlds basically. I think the idea that he's the best jungler at worlds, he could be, but I think jungling right now is very much like a team effort, if that makes sense. Along with support, like support very much now. Right now, it's not doesn't feel like 2v2 is as important in the meta. Definitely important. I'm sure at Worlds, if you just mess up 2v2, then you're just gonna lose the game. But it's not as like the previous years where it's like, oh, it's Marta, Def, and all these players that must win. You have to win lane. Um, I feel like there's going to be a lot of like movement around the map, whereas this time it's going to be more about coordination, and obviously mechanics play a big part. So I'm sure that's why Darshan thinks the 4 seed's going to do really well. Because yeah, Chinese teams, like the way they play, they contest everything, and I think that's like the way to play early game.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Kiana's Thighs wants to know from you, Darshan, are there any sleeper top picks that you think people should be playing in the ladder right now, or anything that you think is strong in the current meta that might be a bit underrated?
I think people are still sleeping on Gwen a little bit. I think
Mm.
she's very strong. Like I think people think she's good, but I don't think she's just good. I think she's very strong. Like she's one of the best top laners still. I think she beats like most melee champions, so I think she's a very good champion to climb with, especially when you see what you're laning against. I would say that. Um, I think people are sleeping on Gangplank a little bit. I don't think he's the best champion for climbing, but I think he's really strong, especially when he scales. Uh, and then I think the other champions people are sleeping on are like range top laners. I don't think people play a lot of Lucian or Vayne, but I think Lucian is actually really strong right now too.
Mm.
You can even go the shield bow build, and you're just able to duel anyone 1v1. Of course, like you can't pick it every single game, but and then same thing with Vayne. I think that the champion, when they have like Olaf jungle, or they have these top laners like Shen or Mordekaiser, or even Gnar to some extent, where they can't really do that much to you 1v1, you're just able to like get a free lane. And I think there is benefit to AD carries in top lane, especially when you have like a Ziggs AD carry or something like that.
Yeah, good answer. And let's do one final question for you guys, which is, do you have any pre-game rituals that you guys do to get yourself in the competitive headspace?
Get some sunlight.
Walk outside for a little bit, have some fresh air.
Just sunlight. I feel like it actually helps. No kidding.
Yeah, sunlight's great. I also like to meditate. Just both of those together.
Do you have any meditation resources that you use that you could recommend to people?
Ooh. Um, I would say to try and do it without guidance. Just try and do either
Yep.
following your breath or any of that. Because I think a lot of people want to go to something to rely on, but I think just being able to sit in silence is ideal.
Yes, I too recommend that. I find it to be very effective. All right, well, thank you both for joining me for the Nines here presented by AT&T. Thank you to AT&T and Microsoft and Puma, of course, with Cloud9. Looking forward to seeing what you guys do after this off season, and we'll be seeing, of course, the LCS roster participating in the World's play-ins, As I'm sure you know, those play-ins will be starting on October 5th. They'll be going from the 5th to the 9th, so you can catch Cloud9 there, and hopefully we'll see them in the main event at Worlds as well. Should be a really exciting play-in. This is probably the most excited I've ever been for play-ins at Worlds. I think it's going to be really competitive this year. Looking forward to watching Cloud9, looking forward to watching Chovy in play-ins, looking for, there's a lot of exciting reasons to check out the games. So we will see you then. And we'll be back later on this year with some more episodes of the Nines. Till then.